Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuning in to the 10-day marketing challenge. Yep, you are here for the Never Give Up 10-day marketing challenge. So you might can't see me just yet, but you probably can hear me. So let me know. If you can hear me, go ahead and type a number one in the chat. Type a number one in the chat. If you can hear the words that are coming out of my mouth. All righty. All right. Let's see. Let's see what we got coming on in here. Hey, Clinton. Hey, Angel, Ebony, Dre, Selena, Angel, Shiny. Oh, y'all coming in hot. Come on in. Lakeisha. Oh, my goodness. Y'all are lit on this Saturday afternoon. Okay. So that means you can hear me. So let's go ahead and see if you can see me. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Now, if you can see me, type a number two in the chat. Type a number two in the chat. Welcome, everyone. So again, you're tuning into the Never Give Up 10-day marketing challenge. I always have to tell you guys, this didn't exist 2 weeks ago, but God led us here today just for you. I'm super excited about chatting with you guys today. Super excited about our guests for today. And just to welcome you guys, because this is our very last session for the 10-day marketing challenge. Oh my God, you guys, you are in for a treat today. I don't want to say we save the best for last because all of our people were amazing, but we definitely have a treat for you guys today. But before we even get into that, if this is your very first time seeing me live or tuning into the YouTube channel or being a part of our community, I am your girl, Katrina Nickhol. Yep, that is Nicole and not Nickel. And I'm your host for the challenge. Again, the Never Give Up 10-day marketing challenge didn't exist. And the reason why we started is because we saw so many people, especially entrepreneurs, individuals who had passions, dreams, and goals ready to give up. And so not only did they want to give up on their business, but some people was ready to give up on life. And we couldn't have that, right? And so it was just placed on my heart to share what I had on the inside of me with those individuals. And my goal and my hope was that anything that we shared over these last 10 days, anybody that we brought in from the morning speakers or the night speakers, the afternoon and evening speakers, blessed you in a way that opened up your mind, opened up your heart, and opened up your spirit to never give up. And this to let you know that God has you, right? Because this was a free challenge. It was absolutely free. So on top of that, I am so happy and so blessed that I had so many individuals willing to partner with me and come in and help me pour into you. So thank you to all of our partners. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to all of our guests. Also the thank you to you participants, APs, because that's what we call our people in our community. We call them APs, which stands for accountability partners. We also have neighbors, and those neighbors are our APs as well that said yes at the last minute. We had 100 people we allowed to come in. Yep, you guys were our top 100 that we allowed to come in and do this challenge with us. So on top of those thank yous, we want to thank you too. We want to thank you too for joining us and showing up. And some of you guys showed up for every single session. That means you were up with us at 6 a.m. in the morning and you was out up with us at night for all of our night sessions, anywhere between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. So thank you guys. So let's just do this real quickly. Can we just drop some hand claps in the chat for you, for our special guests, and for all those that participated over the last 10 days? Let's just take a moment to celebrate. Because it has been amazing. And I just thank you guys for trusting me because I halfway didn't know what I was doing. Okay. So let me tell you what I mean by that. This thing was birthed within a couple days. So that means I didn't know fully what it was going to look like or what it was going to turn into, right? Now I know my stuff. That's the difference, right? So I know what I'm talking about. However, in regards to how it was going to all play out, it was all by faith, right? And so I hope that you watching me and seeing me birth this, right? And God allowing me to birth this shows you that you don't always have to have it all together. All you have to do is follow your gut, follow the spirit, and just do what God has put in you to do because he's going to cover everything else. All right. So again, thank you. Yes. We got all the hand claps, all the things. Yes, yes, yes. You're so welcome. You guys are so welcome. So I hope anything we share with you guys today helps you into never giving up. All right. So, also for those of you who like, okay, but what is this 10-day marketing challenge? All it was us coming in daily, sharing marketing strategies. So we've had experts, gurus, people who are in the top of their industry, but also individuals that who know their stuff and was just willing to pour into our community. And so we talked about everything from avatar, target audience, from marketing on a high level to a low level, just starting out, intermediate. We talked about every single thing, content strategies. It has been amazing. Okay. It's been amazing. So, for all of those who attended all those days, drop in the chat if this has been life changing for you. Drop in the chat. Let us know what your take of the challenge has been so far while we're getting ready to bring our special guest to the stage. Yes, God got you. God got you guys. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So while you guys are doing that, let me tell you about our special guest today. Our special guest is let me just say she's amazing. She's amazing. Y'all, she was born in Anchorage, Alaska. Yes, this black girl magic was born in Alaska. And I know you like, wait, they got people like us in Alaska? Yep, they do. And she's a product of that. And on top of that, she runs one of the top ad agencies around, right? And so on top of that, I just got to brag about my girl real quick, okay? I got to brag about her real quick. So I can tell you about all the amazing things that she's done, who she's worked with, from a lot of the big known brands and big box brands that you guys are aware of. But in regards to her company, her along with her amazing team, has helped these brands generate almost $2 billion in revenue. Yes, almost $2 billion in revenue. On top of that, she is an amazing writer. When I tell you her writing skills are immaculate, I understand why her company is doing so many things and on a high level when it comes to marketing. On top of that, she has a new column out in Forbes. So if you guys want to see all the amazing things she is doing, but you want to pick her brain, you can pick her brain looking at her writings and her columns on Forbes right here, right now, today. Now she works with a lot of major brands, but on top of that, she is now not scaling back, but she is coming back for some of the brands that need her level of expertise. And she's doing that through one part of her agency, which is called Truly Scalable, where she is taking the time to help people direct or give them like a clear path or understanding what a clear path takes in order for them to achieve their goals. So I'm super excited to see her come back and just help people who really, really need it. I ain't saying the big box brands don't need it, but there's people, everyday individuals who need her knowledge and expertise in regards to getting to that level. And so she is taking the time to pour into those levels of individuals. So I'm super excited about that. She also has a podcast and a segment where she does with some of my favorite people, Tyron Spear and Tommy Powell's, and they have a podcast out right now. Again, y'all need to check it out. And it is called Next Level Ambition Podcast. Listen, I can go on and on and on, okay? But I'm going to save some for her. But I just want you guys to know who is coming to the stage. Her brain is next level genius, okay? She is a data guru. She knows her numbers. She knows what things look like. And I'm so glad she's going to be coming in here and pouring into us today. So without further ado, I want to bring to the stage my girl, Kai. Kai, can you come onto the stage?
Hello, hello. How's it going? How are you?
It's going. Like, forgive me for saying all the things, but listen, you are so dope. And I just had to let people know who was in the room, okay?
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. How was your day so far?
So far, so good. So far, so good. Can't complain. Busy, busy, but always in a good way.
Awesome. If you
Yeah.
guys can hear us well, go ahead and drop a 100 in the chat and let us know that you are ready for this content for today. Let us know. So, Kai, we've been talking to entrepreneurs who are fairly new to the game, right? Some people, they have some skin, meaning that they have started their businesses, they have started posting content, making some sales, but they have these huge gaps when it comes to marketing, right?
Mm.
And from my perspective, from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks as we've done the challenge, it is because of a few, I won't say a few gaps, but it's because of what they believe marketing is, right? What they see on the front end. And they try to mimic what they see on social media and what other people are doing in their brands. And they don't understand like what it really takes to build something profitable and sustainable. So I would love to hear your take on marketing for a lot of these individuals who are just starting.
Yeah, no, I think, the challenging part, I think, about getting just started, whether you're, regardless of what business you're in, right? So I specialize in e-commerce. So a lot of my clients that come to me, they're in the e-commerce lane, whether they're just getting started. Some of them are, literal startups, VC backed or bootstrapping and like getting it out of the mud. And then you've got the other folks over there who are like more enterprise level and everybody in between. And what I've seen for, especially when people are just getting started, to your point, there's a misunderstanding, I think, about the role certain channels actually play in marketing and what's
Mhm.
actually required, like kind of behind the scenes in terms of, what you really need in order to get a channel to go. So when I say channel, I'm really talking about, for example, like paid traffic, right, would be a channel. More
Mhm.
specifically, paid social would be a channel. So like Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And I think especially in the advertising space, we're talking about paid social in particular, because that's like the channel I think that that people get bombarded with quite a bit,
Right. Right.
whether you're just starting or whether you're very well seasoned. And what's happening is people on the surface are looking at all these great ads. They're looking at all these screenshots from, like bigger brands, what have
Yeah.
you. They're doing like millions, tens of millions, what have you, hundreds of millions of dollars,
Mhm.
running traffic. And they think that, okay, well, all I need to do is just run traffic. Like I just started my business. I've got my product. Now I'm gonna run traffic. And that's not necessarily the order of operations, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes down to it, I always take a look at, I get a lot of people who come to me and they say, hey, we'd love to hire you for advertising and that sort of thing. And usually I turn most of them away. I'll be honest. Me
Mm.
and the team, we honestly, it's harder to get into this agency than it is to get into Harvard. Like our acceptance rate is really, really low.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's low, but the reason for that is because there is an infrastructure, I think, that is necessary in order to really be able to scale with paid traffic. What people don't understand is that paid traffic is not like the foundation of a business. It can't be, because
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
powerful, and mind you, I say this as a media buyer who's been in the game for a while, who's, scaled a number of brands and has been in and out of ad accounts like on a day-to-day basis, right? I love Facebook ads. I think they're super powerful and super incredible. However, paid traffic, like especially paid social, is literally the most volatile channel you could possibly be on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
100%. Like the ebbs and flows are insane. Day to day, week to week, quarter to quarter, CPMs can rise and fall. Facebook rolls out some new updates and there are glitches all of a sudden. You could have campaigns that are humming along nicely, and then all of a sudden Facebook yanks away your targeting, right? Because they're making some targeting changes or some policy changes, or Apple updates kind of come up, and all of a sudden, people are kind of running around, with their hair on fire practically, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things that can happen. And so it's really like the cherry on top of the sundae. And I think
Yeah.
what people tend to believe is that it's like the Sunday bowl, and it isn't. And when I'm talking to people about establishing like a stable marketing mix, this is so incredibly critical. And I think it's something that people don't know when they're getting started. And I think it's something that a lot of founders wish they had known, especially in e-commerce when you have such narrow margins and it's such a cash flow centric
Mhm.
business. They wish they had known like what the actual marketing mix should look like
Yeah.
what the order of operations are. And so, I always tell people, if you think about your marketing mix almost linearly, like from a customer journey perspective, you want
Mhm.
to make sure that the back end of that journey, so like post conversion, for example, after they've actually made the purchase, that section of your funnel, as it were, is strong enough to support getting low cost repurchases over and over and over again without using ads, right? So it's like your email game has to be really tight. Your SMS game should be really tight. The various flows that are necessary to be able to move somebody from a first-time customer to like an avid repurchaser to a subscriber, where they're just like, you've got a subscription going and they're just automatically subscribing and getting this, whatever your product is, like on a monthly basis, weekly basis, quarterly, what have you. That's the key. Like that's the magic. It's not so much the paid. Like, yes, on the front end, right? Like you're going to want to make sure that your paid traffic is profitable. And there are all sorts of optimization things you can do to make that happen. But realistically, the goal is to be able to have such a robust back end and have such a robust like retention marketing program in place that anybody that you bring in, whether it's from paid traffic or whether it's from influencer marketing or whether it's from PR, what have you, anybody that you bring into that ecosystem you're going to maximize the revenue, right?
So what I'm hearing is foundation. I'm going to try to type the word foundation in the chat, because everything you're saying to me is, before you come over here to me, I need your foundation to be right. Because also what I'm hearing is, if your foundation is not set, allowing someone like you and your ADC to come in can break their business. It could break it, right? Or the right influencer, the right person, they come in and then you get all that traffic, but your infrastructure can't handle it. And I was telling them about this early in the week. We were talking about some people were saying, hey, well, let me just connect with this person, or, let me connect with this audience or this influencer. And I'm like, well, can you even handle it? Or would you crash?
Are you ready? Exactly.
Are you ready for real?
Are you really ready? Because I've seen that. I've seen it happen where sometimes it's out of the blue, right? Sometimes it's orchestrated. A brand is like, they've got all of these influencer marketing campaigns, they're working with a bunch of celebrities, and there's a particular campaign that just hits and takes off. And they're super excited at first. Like that first hour is just exhilarating until they realize, oh, wait, no, now I have 10,000 orders to fill. And it's only been an hour and a half. Like that kind of stuff, it can be incredibly damaging. And I can give some examples. I mean, you can actually, I'll take a large name example so that I can name names, because I tend to want to keep client information confidential.
Yes, I'll let you drop the names.
Yes. But let's take Fashion Nova, for example. And I'm sure some of you, have probably experienced this, buying, various products from Fashion Nova, let's say, I think 3 or 4 years ago. So before Fashion Nova, now they've got their fulfillment much, much tighter than it used to be. But there was one point where Fashion Nova they're working with tons of influencers. They were on this meteoric rise, and they were just really backlogged with fulfillment. And so people were either like not getting their packages at all, or they were getting their packages 2, 3, 4 months later. And then when they would get their orders, like only some of the clothes would be in there. It was a complete and utter mess. And what was happening was they were scaling way too fast and their ops couldn't keep up. So ultimately, the marketing teams and the advertising teams were not having conversations whatsoever. They were working in a silo. They were not having conversations with the ops teams, or the COO or the director of operations, what have you. And so what ultimately wound up happening is their influencer marketing ultimately suffered a great deal because of that. So, what was going on was they would partner with like Cardi B, for example, and Cardi B would put all these great posts. She's wearing, all these cute fits, what have you. And people would just like destroy her comments about how, oh, well, that's nice that you got your clothes, but I wish I had mine. I've been waiting for 4 months, that kind of stuff. And just like massive deluge of like hundreds and hundreds of comments. And that really hurt their brand. And they had to really put, scale back a bit and really put in time and effort to get to where they are now, where now it's like you can get same day shipping, same day delivery, or I think it's like next day, perhaps delivery. But that takes time. And it can be really, really damaging
There's
if you're not.
time.
Yeah.
That's so good because it does take time. Because I remember I didn't like ordering from them at one point because it took 2 and 3 weeks. And you know us, it's like, hey, we have an event or we have to
Mhm.
travel, and by the
Yeah.
time the package comes, it's going to be after the fact. So
Right.
again, if your foundation is not right, you can literally crash. And for some of you, all it takes is one Facebook post, one person giving you negative feedback on social media to where now you're doubting everything that you've done and everything that you built and you're questioning everything, right? So we don't want that for you. But let's
Right.
say that segues me into another thing. So one of the things I also love about you, every time we get around each other, every time we hang out, I always say, I just love your aura in regards to you being confident in who you are and your identity and not changing for the people that you're around and things like that. And now I know that was a growth um, journey for you, but I know there's a lot of people now on here, especially who's dealing with marketing or learning about marketing, but they're afraid to show up as their best selves, right? And so as soon as something happened in their business, as soon as a post doesn't get enough hits, and soon
Mm.
as someone gives them negative feedback, they're ready to throw in the towel. So, like, could you share a little bit about your journey into just being who you are right now, but also how it tied into you now being able to grow an amazing organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So, interestingly enough, so when I was a kid growing up, I grew up an only child. And I spent a lot of time, I was like a geek. I'm still a geek, honestly. I spent a lot of time reading books and like, painting and that sort of thing. I was pretty, on my own. And I found when I entered rooms, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence. I was pretty introverted.
Mhm.
And it took a little bit of time to kind of break out of my shell in that regard. But I think entrepreneurship is really like the thing that really did it. So like
Yeah.
I'd done some inner work before. So prior to owning an agency, I was an investment banker working in corporate. And then before that, I was, college and, was an astrophysics researcher and what have you. And it was like, I remember being in these spaces, whether it's, in the lab or whether it's, on the trading floor, what have you, and feeling like I didn't quite belong there. There was just
Mm.
an awkwardness, an unease within myself. And I think that showed it's an energy thing. I'm a big proponent of energy. I truly believe
Yeah.
that. And I think that there's a sort of energy that you put out into the world when you're feeling any kind of way about yourself or any kind of way about your role in the world or your role in the room or whether you belong there. And it took me quite some time to kind of get out of that shell because I was always so worried about like, oh, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I
Yeah.
say, X and then they don't like me? Or, what if I say Y and, that's problematic? And it got to a place where I realized, you know, it was actually a quote, Dr. Seuss. There's a Dr. Seuss quote that really like stuck with me. And I'm probably paraphrasing, but ultimately it's something to the effect of um, do what you like and say how you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
I love that Dr. Seuss quote.
Yeah, and it really did stuck with me, and I realized along the way, especially in entrepreneurship, it forces you to put yourself out there.
Hmm.
There are some types of companies where you're not necessarily the face of the brand, and you can totally get away and do really, really well, never really, showing your face anywhere,
Hmm.
right? But the nature of my work requires me to kind of be out and about and really having lots of conversations with people. And I had to kind of, in order for me to get to where I wanted to be, in my agency, in my career, what have you, I had to push myself. And it was one of those things where I just had to do it scared. Like,
Yeah.
I was spending so many years waiting to not be afraid. Like, okay, I just have to get over this fear or get over this anxiety or get over this concern or get over these thoughts in my head before I do the thing. And I, just let years go by. It just didn't make sense. Right. So ultimately, once I decided, you know what, this is how I feel, I'm just going to go do it anyway. And I
Yeah.
start to realize, like, going into these rooms, some of these rooms anyway, like, all of these concerns and fears that I had about, oh, what if they don't think I'm very smart? Or, oh, what if they don't, all of these things, I realized, huh, there are some people in these rooms that actually aren't as smart as I am.
Listen.
you know? And it just completely shifted. Like my paradigm just totally shifted. And I think once I realized that, there are all sorts of people in all sorts of rooms, and some of them, I think you can learn from everyone, right? Everyone has something to bring to the table. Everyone has something of value that you can gather and learn from. But I start to realize, like, what was I so worried about? Like,
Right.
like I'm good. This is
Yeah.
cool. This is fun. And I think once I got to that place, I was able to shed away some of the fear and concerns about just like saying what's on my mind. I'm probably, people who know me know, like, I'm pretty real when it comes to what I have to say.
Y'all, she
And
is
how,
so filtered, okay? She has
like, I'm
no filter. I'm
pretty,
trying to tell you, like, I love it. I love my friends that will say what's on their mind, and she's one of those individuals.
I love you too. I love you too. But yeah,
Listen,
it got to a place where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just say how I feel. And what I realized is that there were so many people around me that were thinking exactly what I'd been thinking,
hmm,
and they just weren't saying it. And so there was so much like emotional resonance that was happening. People were like hitting me up in DMs and what have you, emails, what have you. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. Like, that's what I've
yeah,
been feeling that way. And I just like, you couldn't have put it any better for me. Like,
yes, yes,
you read my mind. And it happens with alarming regularity. And even to this day, it's not like, oh, I'm totally over it. And I never, have a doubt as to,
right,
whether
right,
what I'm going to
yeah,
like, it's always going to be there. Right. But I do it anyway. And what I find is that, I'm able to create these communities of people who are just like, so so happy that I am saying what they perhaps don't necessarily feel comfortable saying, but absolutely think and absolutely feel. And then we can all kind of like come together, and in some cases we get to do something about it, right? Which is cool
yeah,
too.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. So I love that. I definitely love that. And I want to just share a quick story, you guys. So I remember we were hanging out one day. I believe it was in Mexico.
Mm,
I believe we was in Mexico, and we were just hanging out, and we were chatting about like different ways that we could help each other in our businesses, right? As far as in like, what are you working on, and what are you working on? This was working well for me. This was not working well for me. And I remember sharing was what was not working well for me in my business. And I was like, I have a gap somewhere, like something is off and I don't know what it is. And Kai started sharing with me what she felt was off. And it wasn't in an arrogant tone, right? So because I'm not like that, but I definitely was responding to Kai. I was like, but no, Kai, I don't think that's what it is, because I've done this and I have this, and look, I have this and I have that. And Kai was like, but I believe X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, but no, I don't think that's what it is, Kai. So I was looking for Kai to tell me something else. So it wasn't that I didn't appreciate what she was saying, but the gaps that I had, I was looking for something else from her. I'm like, but with all your knowledge, I know you can give me something else. Like, what else do you see besides that? And Kai was like, that's it, period. Like the way she was like, I said what I said. Now she didn't say it like that, but I'm telling you, like the aura, like, this is what's wrong. And she shut up. She didn't say nothing else, right? And so the whole time I'm like, but that's not it. That's not it. So a couple hours went by. I'm all in my room doing doing work and trying to figure out like what's going on. So when I come back to the table, I'm like, who gonna help me, boo? Right. But in that time frame, I was convicted. I was definitely convicted because what she said was true. What she said was right. And I had to go back to her a few hours later and I was like, Kai, I'm so sorry. Because everything you said to me was the truth. Like, yes, I did do the work, like what I had told you I did, but it was for a whole different segment of my business, right? It was not for where I was right now, for the problem I was having at that moment. So
mm,
yeah, you didn't did all the things, but you ain't doing the right thing, Katrina. Like what? So what she said ultimately, like I said, was correct, and I had to go back and I had to, put my big girl drawers on, and say, God, like, my bad, girl. Sorry. But thank you for the information. And she was like, no problem, no problem. So I'm sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm sharing that because I know, to me, I believe you're a seer. I believe you're an individual. You can like see straight through people. You can see fluff. You can see when people, trying to like name drop and do and act like they so much grander than what they are. I always felt like you can like just see straight through people. And I love that about you. So how do you navigate when you are in those spaces and to give people grace or like just to keep your mouth shut because you like y'all are not all what y'all think y'all are, right? But also like for individuals like myself, like when I did come and I was like, but that's not it. What else? How do you navigate those spaces and still being your authentic self?
Mm, that's a good question. So I do recognize, even kind of as I've gone along my personal journey of, coming out of my shell and, being more authentically me. I do recognize, and it took me some time too, to recognize that not everyone is going to be receptive. Like you were ultimately like, this is the first time I'm hearing like your side of it. I
Mhm.
felt like you were super like receptive and like super cool. And that was amazing because those are the types of people that I love being around. I think those are the types of people like a lot of entrepreneurs love being around because we're all about personal growth and
Yeah.
like professional growth, right? And that's how you get to where you want to go.
Mhm.
But I have been in rooms where I've felt like, not everybody wants to hear the gaps, right? Like
Yeah.
not everybody necessarily wants that advice, and it's like you kind of have to traverse that like fine line, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
for me, it's been about like reading the room, and I've had to get to a place where I've had to like really intently study body language and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But oftentimes, I tend not to provide my insight unless it's asked for. Like that's kind of the
Gotcha.
golden rule at this point.
Mhm.
There's so many things like, I can see all these various gaps in people's businesses from just like a 10-15 minute conversation, but that doesn't always mean that I just need to like blurt out, hey, you should do, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that that's been something that's really helped me is just like that discernment in terms of, especially like how long have I known this person? How intimately do I understand their business?
Mhm.
I tend not to be the person that gives advice without asking questions, that kind of thing. So I think that's how I've kind of helped stay out of trouble, as it were. Uh, but yeah, that's been helpful. And then what was your second question?
I was just saying more so like 'cause again, how I mean you kind of answered the one in regards to how I was communicating and like how do you respond when people think they know it all? And you're like, that is not what it is. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Versus, of course, you don't want to be offensive, right? And at the same time, you don't
sure.
want to hurt their feelings because this is their vision, that's their baby,
Of course. Of course.
so like
And
how do you find that balance though?
yeah, for me it's about finding. So I think everybody's like a multifaceted human being, multifaceted individual. Everybody has these various faces and these various inflection points that they channel, like where they want to, for example, for me, in those types of situations, I'm channeling compassion, right? That's a
Mhm.
facet that I'm channeling because I also recognize like entrepreneurship is really hard. Like there's a reason why not many people do this. I know it
Yeah,
feels like, everybody and their mother is an entrepreneur now, but it's actually not really the case. And there's a reason why so many, businesses kind of wind up falling off. This is very challenging space, regardless of what kind of business you have. And
yeah,
so I'm always looking from at their perspective from a place of compassion because I know how much work and how much energy and how much like blood, sweat, and literal tears lots of times that they've put into the work that they're doing or the business that they're running, or what have you. I think when people are pushing back and they're like, "No, that's not it," that kind of thing, or like for me, it's really just about it depends on the setting. So, for example, if it's a consulting client and they're like, "No, I don't think I'm going to do that." Usually my response is, okay, cool. Well, we could test it, right? Like
Mhm.
that's, as a media buyer, we can always like rip open some campaigns and run some split tests and see whether like it's my, recommendation that wins out, or whether it's, their direction that they want to go that wins out.
Right.
Usually it's me, right? Usually I'm right, but I'm not always. So, I'm always down for testing. And I think oftentimes when people see the numbers, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? When you're able to like provide evidence. And so when I'm not in those spaces, like when we're not talking about consulting clients or when I have access to ad accounts and that sort of thing, oftentimes, I tend to be able to have data at my disposal that I can use to back up a position anyway. It might not be their data, but
Right.
I have data at the agency,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'll do that too. I'll use some pretty stark evidence and just kind of walk them through the storyline, right? Walk them through the business story, and oftentimes that's really helpful. And then when I don't, right, or when that's not helpful, and they're still like, no, I don't think I'm gonna do that. For me, I tend to at that point, I'm like, okay, that's totally cool, but have you considered this? If you don't go in this direction, have you thought about this, and this that could potentially happen down the road? And do you have systems in place or contingency plans or anything to help mitigate that or hedge that risk?
Yeah.
And usually the answer is no. And that's when they'll be like, okay, well,
They're
let's
more receptive then. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So those are some things that have helped me. But ultimately, I have to, and it took me a very long time to get to this point. And again, I'm not like a perfect, like I'm still a work in progress. Um,
Mhm.
but at some point, I realized that there's just going to be some recommendations that people don't take. You know what I mean?
True.
And you can only do so much. And you can, before it becomes like pushy or, before you're creating friction that's, unnecessary. But ultimately, eventually, what usually winds up happening is they receive new information down the line, whether they've learned the easy way or learned the hard way, and they come back and like, oh, tell me about that thing that you said I should do.
Exactly. Because I'm sure a lot of people have come back to you. Like I had to come back and be like, girl, my bad. I had to come back.
It
And
happens.
that was growth for me because, like you said, I was very receptive to what you were saying. So I wasn't, like I say, arrogant and like, no, that's not it. It wasn't that. I was very receptive, but I was
For
still
sure.
very like, is there something else though? Because I have this. So like, what else could it be? He was like, that's it. You know. And then when I went back, I was like, you know what? You are absolutely right. I did do it, but this data was for that, not this. And
Mhm.
so I still appreciate that to this day. This day. So like, if you had to, okay, we have new people on here. We
Okay.
have new individuals that are new to marketing, new to this whole entire process. I mean,
Mm.
we've had lives over the last couple of days, and people was like, "What's copy? Right? What's an
Mhm.
offer?" So we do have some fresh faces, but we also have individuals who have been in the game just a little bit. What is one marketing tip regards to starting out? Like, what should be their main focus right now, from your perspective, that all of them should be focusing on as they're starting this journey?
It's a great question. So, and this is going to be, it's going to seem counterintuitive at first, but I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, it's the way to go. It's the right order of operations, as it were. Um, Make sure, and I think this is something that isn't talked about enough in the industry as well, at least in the internet marketing industry. Make sure that your product, whether you're selling a product or you're selling a service, make sure that your fulfillment is tight. Make sure that like whatever the product is, that it's got marketable features. And when I say marketable features, I'm talking about it includes all of the things that people have had negative experiences about with other companies. So like
Mm.
really doing that research. And I mean, you can,
There's
you know,
that
in
work again.
e-com,
Market research, y'all. Market
yeah, like
research.
for sure. Like even in e-com, right? Like you can go to Amazon and look up competitor products and just read the reviews. Take a look at the
Mhm.
1 stars, the 2 stars, the 3 stars. What did people not like about it? Was the
Yeah.
shipping super slow? Did the thing
Mhm.
spill, you know, in the box when they received it? Like, you know, did it make their hair fall out? Like whatever it is, right?
Right, right.
Take a look at those things and then begin really making sure that your product is optimized to stand out against the market. I think is so, so critical. And you can do the same thing if you're a service-based business, right? So it's really about, you know, in service industry or like in the service-based, you know, as service providers, it's really all about like how you can create a customer or client experience that's going to make people feel special, feel cared about,
Yeah.
and do the thing that you said that you were going to do, the thing that they paid you to do really,
Key.
really well, right?
Really well. Okay.
Really well. It's so critical because I think
Mhm.
there's just so many people in the market, especially like internet marketing industry. I mean, you see it all the time in ads and like
Mhm.
funnels and conferences. Like everybody talks about the marketing, 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 and the sales, 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 sales.
Mhm.
But very few are actually talking about the operations and the fulfillment and the back end that's
Mhm.
going to sustain the business. Right. If you can
So
get
good.
people who like really just love your products, really love your service, and are willing to just like be with you for years and years and years to
Yeah.
come, that's so much cheaper. It's so much cheaper to go that route. And then like layer on a little paid traffic, you know, cherry on top after that. But it's so much cheaper to go that route instead of constantly having to find new customers, constantly having to find new clients. It's time consuming, it's more expensive, like significantly more expensive to do that. And so when you're talking about building a business that stands the test of time, again, kind of it's like full circle back to what I was talking about at the top of the call, when it comes down to retention, right? That's
Mhm.
like the fuel in the machine. So I think that as long as people are really putting a lot of time, energy, and attention and care into their products, into their services, really focusing in on like what makes this different, what makes this special, what makes
Mm.
this unique is so critical. There's so much noise in the market. There's so many products. Like e-commerce is just like skyrocketed through the roof.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, everybody and their mother, you know, wants to be an e-commerce entrepreneur right now. So it's like
Mhm.
you have to find ways to be able to stand out. And you can do that, of course, with your marketing and you can do that with your brand and that sort of thing. And that's important too. But at the
Right.
end of the day, if they receive the product and it doesn't live up to the marketing promise, they're never going to buy again. And not only will they not buy again, but they'll also come for you in the comments on social. They'll come
They
for
will
you in
come
your
for you.
they
Yes.
will come for you. Listen, Facebook is probably one of the most talkative platforms out there when it comes to how quickly people will drag you for products that they didn't receive or for products that they didn't like or for products that didn't match the marketing promise, what have you.
Yeah.
It's insane. And they'll come for you in your own ads that you've paid for. So oftentimes, like we see this with some brands where like just fulfillment isn't quite there, or maybe the product just needs a little bit more optimization. And you'll just start to see like click through rates decline and conversion rates decline. And you're wondering, well, this is interesting. And then you just go through, you know, the comments and
Yep.
community management, which all brands should be doing if you're running traffic, by the way. But that's for another time, perhaps. But you see in the comments people saying, oh no, this product was awful, oh this tasted terrible, oh no, this was like 5 sizes too small, you know, that sort of stuff. And it will hurt your conversion rates going forward because the first thing that people tend to look at after they looked at your creative and after they've checked out the headline, and maybe sometimes after they've looked at like the first couple lines of copy, they'll go to the comments and see whether it's worth even clicking through to your website, to check out what you've got. So it's just so, so important. So important.
I love that because one of the things we've been talking about is the trial and error, and not being so emotionally attached to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because someone see one bad comment, they are totally forgetting about the other 100 great comments.
Right. Right.
So again, that goes back into like the inner work and the work that we have to do for ourselves or within ourselves to be prepared for even this. Because when someone gets with you, I'm sure I know there are a lot of people who may not have done so much work, right? Because again, they may have went viral, or they have, fell into some success that has yielded them great pockets, fairly quickly. However, what type of work, internal work, do you believe a person needs to do in order to be prepared for that level of success? Because one of the things I've also learned too, which had for me, my feelings that got hurt. I remember one time I felt like I had a little change in my pocket. And I went and I was like, I'm ready to invest and I'm ready to do this in my business. And then I found out that, just because you have this type of money and make these types of sales, you're not even considered still a small business, right? Being considered a small business, depending on where you are, you have to be making millions upon millions of dollars. And sometimes people think just because they're making $1 million and $2 million that they are, operating on a high level. When you get around the right person is going to be like, oh, you did 2 million. Okay, well,
Mhm.
you're just starting in the game. You got a great, future ahead of you. And you like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I thought I just did something. So my
you
feelings have got,
did.
yeah,
You
I did for
did,
me.
but
But
yeah,
but when you get
it's
around certain
impressive.
individuals or
Yeah.
in certain rooms,
Mhm.
making that type of money is still chump change, to certain individuals, because they are doing 30, 40, 50 million a year. And again, depending on what room you're in, um, a small business is what, like two could be, 200 million, so so I'm just saying that, because sometimes when you don't do the right work and you don't know who you are, then when you get in those spaces, then you don't feel adequate, right? You start feeling inadequate and you start doubting, your progress, and it can stunt your growth just a bit. So like, what would you tell someone who's looking to get into this space and operate at a high level? Like, what type of internal work do you believe they need to do?
That's a great question and a great point. I think um, when it comes down to it, I really believe that people should think about it's about perspective, right? And I think people, particularly people just starting, but just like honestly, millionaires, deca millionaires, what have you, it's the same types of mindset shifts that people are struggling with. But
Mhm.
it is a shift in perspective that's necessary. Um, you know, for me, I've I look at it this way. A million's great.
Mhm.
500,000 is great. 10,000 is great, right? 10 million, 50 million, 100, like it, at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody who's doing better than you
Mhm.
revenue wise, right? You have to redefine what you see as success. I think that can be really valuable and really helpful. Yes, like a revenue number, that's cool and all, but there's lots of different ways to define success.
Yeah.
And I think once you get to that place where you're able to define success outside of what's in your bank account or what your cash flow looks like or how much in revenue your company did, and all of that sort of stuff, is when you can find that peace that is honestly, in my opinion, really valuable for when you do go to those next rungs and those next levels
Yeah.
in your business or what have you. And I think that, I see it all the time where, millionaires, like they think they're all that in a bag of chips because they're millionaires.
Right.
Um, but realistically, you know, a lot of those rooms are, I'll say, a lot of those rooms are eclipsed by rooms that they've never even heard of, where people are doing much, much higher numbers,
Right.
where they're doing the 50 millions, where they're doing billions, right? And I think that as long as you have an inner compass that you're listening to, and
Mhm.
as long as you're able to find peace within yourself in terms of where you are, wherever that is, you will be able to move in rooms in a way that will allow you to really flourish and like feel better about like
What it is you're doing. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. I think that, what helped me is, again, kind of going back to the earlier conversation around realizing that these rooms weren't as like gilded, right? Like there's that you have in your head, like when you walk into a room of billionaires, what have you, there's this like, this thought that you have in your head of like about how they're like and what they talk about and all that. And they're just people. It's just they're
They're
just
just
people.
people.
They're
Yes.
just people, bro. Like
Yes.
and and I think that there are people who are human, who make mistakes, who have
Yeah.
insecurities, who have feelings. Like they're just people.
Yeah.
And I think once you really start to see that and realize that, it just everything kind of shifts.
It
Everything shifts.
does. And I can attest to that because when I started hanging around you guys, I always, I was new and fresh into the industry in regards to all that. So I didn't know what to expect.
Mm.
So before I even, came to, well, here's the thing. You and I met before I started going into some of those rooms. So my first interpretation of you guys or for you and Ty and some of the other individuals was different because we were hanging out for the weekend. Remember, we were hanging out, we were doing our webinars, and we were doing all of those things. And so it was more on a relational type of level. And we were like learning and building and all the things like that. However, shortly after, that's when we started, doing our masterminds. And I didn't know what to expect because all I knew was that was my first time being in the room with you guys. And do you remember we was up to like 5 o'clock in the morning, like just going
Yeah.
all of the numbers and doing all of the work, whatever. And that's what I knew. But then now we were going into like our mastermind rooms. I was like, well, what am I have to offer? I'm still learning and I'm still growing. I don't know what I'm about to share. I don't know, like, how am I going to add value to this room? And these people are doing $1 million months, I'm new and I'm fresh in this space. Like, what does that actually look like? So I doubted so much of what my abilities were before I even walked in the room. I'm being honest, right? And I was like, how am I going to add value to this space? And so then I had to change my perspective before I walked in. So before I even got there with us that weekend, we were hanging out in Atlanta. I was like, what my perspective was, you know what? Number one, if I wasn't supposed to be here, I wouldn't be here. Number one, right? But number two, my perspective was be a sponge. What can you learn? What can you receive? Your goal may not be here to pour into these individuals. Maybe they're supposed to be pouring into you. You never know what that space looks like. But more importantly, if you wasn't supposed to be in that room, Katrina, you wouldn't be in that room. Right. And so when I changed that, I removed my self-sabotaging ways because I almost was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go. I didn't go, right? But then when I got there with you guys, it was totally different from what I expected. Especially, like our crew, our core crew, like y'all are so cool. When I say you guys, they are just amazing. Um, when I say they pour, they serve, they work with some of the biggest brands out there. What I can say is that these individuals work with some of the people that may be on your vision board. I'm just going to say it like that. But that's not how they are in real life in regards to as far as their personalities and things like that. They are just so amazing. And to witness or I would say being blessed to be in a space where it's not about their ego and their pride and all of that, and they genuinely want to help and serve. That is also a reason why I continue to do what I do here with you guys. I pour into you because they pour into me. And so they be like, Katrina, let me know if you need anything. And I'm like, okay. And they looking like, no, like, look at me in my eyes. If you need something, let
Legit.
me know. And I'm like, okay, I promise I'm gonna let you know. And they are so serious. So to be able, I just thank God to be able to get into a space and into rooms and connect with people that are genuine about that. And I'm not connected to these clout chasers and these people that just want to stand in front of their, Mercedes and all of that. Like, that is not how it is.
No, it isn't.
And
It really isn't. No, that's so powerful. And honestly, like I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. I'm so glad that you're doing this for the people because it's so absolutely needed. I feel like when I first met you, it's so funny how like you had all of these like running thoughts in your mind because when I first met you and like subsequent all of the meetings, right? Like I always came away with it with like, oh my gosh, I love Katrina. Like Absolutely. Cause like it's not, even in mastermind settings where like, the objective is, give value and that kind of stuff. Like it's silly because when it comes down to it, like it's really about pouring into one another energetically. That's the way I see it. And
Yeah,
yeah, sometimes that's knowledge, like in terms of, oh, let me give you some game on XYZ. But most of the time for me, I don't really go into those rooms for that. I go into the room to be energetically poured into and to
yeah,
make connections, like heart to heart connections with people. And so, some of the advice that I would give, your audience is like, even if you feel like you don't have anything to bring to the table, like if you're coming in with an open heart and like coming in with amazing energy and you're just really there to learn and just absorb and connect with people, that is value. I
yes, it
think
is.
too often in internet marketing and in like other industries, people are just saying like, oh, if you don't give me a strategy or if you don't give me a connection or if you don't give me a contact, then you don't have no value. That's ridiculous. Some of
Yeah.
the most valuable people that I know, some of the people that I like just vibe with, even if I don't see as often, we should again hang out pretty soon here. But I think that like those are the people who are just so incredibly powerful for me, right? And so at that time, I felt that way. And now, like, a million things. And like, I'm sure we should sync up and I'm sure you could like run around circles like around me when it comes to, things that I just don't know about. Right. So, I think that's just the beauty, I think, of life and the beauty of human connection
Yeah,
is you really never know who's going to pour into you and how. And so it's just in your best interest to just always show up authentically you and open to whatever may come.
yes. That was such great advice. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kai. This is
Thanks
so
so much for having
good.
me. This was
This is-
awesome.
Thank you. Listen, they in the chat, they're saying this is so good. And they said, thank you, Kai. They needed that. Great
Oh,
perspective, impact transformations. They're going in the chat.
oh, I'm
So thank
glad.
you guys so much for joining us today. If you got a question, this is your time to go ahead and drop it right now. If you got a question, we got a few more minutes. Drop your question. Clinton said this has been outstanding.
Oh, good.
I just love being able to expose them to more, because that's what it was for me. And again, where I wasn't, I'm not sure, or I can't say that there were not opportunities. I just didn't know about the opportunities in my city. So it wasn't until
Mm,
I started connecting with you guys where my mind was open and my horizons were stretched. And I just loved every minute of it. So yes, I will be to your city soon. Okay.
oh, good,
but
good.
but I love doing that for others because it was because of the exposure that I had access to that allowed me to grow and continue to do the things that I have been doing in the industry. And what I love about it is that what I do doesn't look like what everybody else do around me, because sometimes at the beginning I was like, well, you're not doing this, you're not running ads, you're not like, being volatile like some people are in the industry, like super vocal. And I just be in my own shell, just really serving my people in my own way. But I had to embrace that and say, my journey is not like yours. But it doesn't mean that I'm
Mhm.
not embracing my journey, right?
Right.
And it has worked for me. It definitely has worked for me. And again, that's what set me apart from everybody else. And I had to embrace that over the time period as well. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
Um,
really
you
happy to be
powerhouse
here.
have definitely poured into us today. Wow. Oh, thank you, Norma. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So any last marketing tips or marketing gems you want to share with them before we get off of here today?
Good question. I think well, I'll say this. So as Katrina mentioned, I do a lot of writing, and so feel free to find me on Forbes. I also write for Inc. magazine and some other publications, and there's always some great stuff. I think that especially people just getting started or people kind of in that intermediate phase can really digest and get a lot of value from. There's one there's one article in particular. I actually just launched it. I launched it on the Truly Scalable site, and we'll probably put some excerpts in Forbes as well. But it's really going to be valuable for people who are trying to figure out like why they're, especially like on the e-com side, but like why their businesses aren't necessarily taking off. And it's providing a lot of information in terms of the framework that you should be thinking about, and kind of some of the the things that are going on in the market that's kind of creating this perfect storm for a lot of business owners. And so hopefully that'll be valuable to you guys. You can find that at trulyscalable.com/the real reason. So hopefully that'll be something that you guys can sink your teeth into. But yeah, this was fantastic. I think in terms of any like final thoughts from my end, don't give up. Like,
never give up.
Like, it's one of those things everybody feels. Like, there's not a single entrepreneur who hasn't felt multiple times like, man, maybe I should get that 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that happens because this industry, and just like being an entrepreneur is not easy. There's a lot of moving parts. You have to wear a lot of hats. But at the end of the day, I think as long as you can find a community of people who love you and want to support you and want to be there for you, that makes that, so much easier. It really, really does. And it's really, I think, just that heart-to-heart connection, and being able to find sources of support, even outside of, especially for people who maybe their families aren't as supportive or their spouses aren't as supportive, what have you. Find your tribe, find your community. There's tons of people who literally feel exactly the same way that you do.
Yeah.
And they're struggling through it, but they know some things that you don't know, and you know some things that they don't know, right? And so if you can, find ways to come together, you guys can help kind of up level and lift each other up. And that's really at the heart of it, what entrepreneurship is about, in my opinion.
And that's what I love about you guys, because you definitely do that. So you guys, we had Kai Ravariere on with us today. She is the owner of the KR agency. For those you guys who are new to this live, you can find her in Forbes. So if you go search Forbes, you can find her articles. When I say she's a great communicator, she keeps it real, and she's going to give you insight that I have not seen anywhere else. And I'm not being funny. Based on her industry, based on her genre, I have not seen anyone be real about it the way that she is, and can communicate and articulate it in the right manner. So you can find her there. You can also find her in Eat Magazine. You can also find her at the Growth Geek. We didn't tell them about the Growth Geek, ma'am.
That's true. That's true. So I have a newsletter that I've recently launched. That's been a lot of fun. It's been really great, just to give people game and insight on e-commerce and business in general, but through just like quirky. I'm quirky. I'm a little weird, and so my emails reflect that. We have fun in there. Tell some fun stories and whatnot. And people get a lot of value out of that. The reception has been just amazing so far. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And hopefully you guys find some value in that too.
Yep. And then last but not least, she also has a podcast with some of our favorite guys, Tommy Powers, and Tyron Spear. So you can find them on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and it is called Next Level Ambition. And so they have casual conversations. I promise you, it feels like you're sitting there and you got whatever your favorite drink is in your hand, and you can sit there and chill with them while they are dropping game, but also providing top-notch industry tips to you guys that you're not going to hear anywhere else. When I say that, I'm being so serious. So y'all know I always tell you guys, I am teaching you what most coaches should teach you, but they're not. That's what I do, but they're doing it as well, but on the level of growing and scaling your business. So you don't want to sleep on my people, okay? So I always like you guys get that information now, so when you're ready for it, when you're ready for these types of connections, you will have them. So go ahead, follow, like, share, all the above. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, Kai.
Yeah, absolutely. I will always ask me whenever, anytime. I'm happy to do this kind of stuff. I love chatting with you. It's been too long, so happy to help.
Listen, don't threaten us with the good times because we'll call back. Because they would tell us, they would say, hey, can you bring Kyle on again? And we're going to bring you on again. I promise.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much, everybody.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone. And make sure, everybody, do not forget tomorrow is our graduation. Tomorrow is our graduation. So tune in tomorrow as we graduate from the 10-day marketing challenge. So never give up 10-day marketing challenge. Remember, that is at 6 p.m. If you're going to be attending, make sure you drop some dollar signs in the chat. Go ahead and drop some dollar signs in the chat. Let us know you're going to be attending. I will be giving out some giveaways, some prizes. You already know I'm Team Extra.
Okay.
So don't sleep on our graduation, okay? But it gives us a chance to celebrate you because some of you guys have showed up at 6 a.m. in the morning and at night, and
Wow.
you've been doing your homework, and you've been helping other people. And so we want to take that time to celebrate you. Yeah, we know the challenge was free, but hey, we're going to pour, we're going to pour. That's what it's about. Okay. So again, thank you guys for joining us. The podcast is called Next Level Ambition. So if you
Well,
go,
so
I'm
the
sorry.
title is actually Scaling Uncensored.
Oh, sorry.
With
Scaling
next.
Uncensored by Next Level Ambition, right? Am I saying it
Yeah.
right?
Yep. That's it.
Okay.
Scaling Uncensored.
Scaling Uncensored. My apologies. Scaling Uncensored. So definitely go check that out. All right, you guys, y'all have an amazing day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.